Today, we are taking an unsanitary deep dive into the case of Pazuzu Algarad.
Saddle up, get a peg on your nose, because I've heard some shitty stories in my time, but this guy's a real stinker.
Today's case starts in San Francisco, 1978. Timothy Lawson and his wife Cynthia gave birth to a beautiful baby boy named John. He had a typical childhood, but as John reaches the age of 8, his parents separate and divorce. Timothy Lawson ups and moves away to California, leaving Cynthia to raise John by herself. John took his parents' divorce and his dad's desertion quite hard. It was at this point in his life when things started to change. He started lying about a lot of things. In his own words, he described being born to an unmarried Satanist woman, claiming that he never met his biological father. John turned to alcohol, which only added to his problems, and by the age of 12, he was a heavy drinker, consuming up to 12 beers per day. It was during this time that his mum Cynthia met a man called John Larry James, and she remarried. The trio moved into the house that would become infamous on Nob Hill Drive.
Nob Hill Drive is quite fitting for a prick like Pazuzu.
This change in John's life didn't have the positive impact that everybody was hoping for, as John increasingly drank and turned to drugs. He also developed an interest in the occult. This deepened with time and resulted in him dropping out of school and becoming a Satanist. In 2002, John Lawson legally changed his name to Pazuzu Algarad. This was inspired by pop culture referencing the name of a demon from The Exorcist.
Old Johnny boy ain't exactly what we call a deep thinker. Named himself after the demon out of The Exorcist. So he named himself Pazuzu. It's a bit mainstream. It's a little bit cheesy. Let's have it right. It's one step removed. Been calling yourself the baddie from the Thundercats. I'm Mum Ra, do you ever live it?
It was reported that his aura was becoming darker. His stepfather was struggling in the relationship with Cynthia and John, and ultimately he also upped and left the pair and moved away. This must have felt to John somewhat like history was repeating itself. In the early years, Cynthia was able to afford some psychiatric treatment for her son, John. He got diagnosed with various mental health problems, including manic depressive, schizophrenia, and agoraphobia. But as we've discussed on this channel before, a mental health diagnosis does not excuse or explain his abhorrent behaviour. As a Satanist, Pazuzu had convinced his mother to go to the pet shop every month on the full moon and purchase a rabbit so he could perform a ritualistic sacrifice in which we would discover he would eat the beating heart. Despite Pazuzu's agoraphobia, he managed to accrue a number of girlfriends who all lived with him and called them all his fiancées.
God damn it. If only I knew how to pull women the Pazuzu way. I'd have saved loads of money. I'd have been buying flowers and chocolates and all that jazz. I'd have just dropped me pants and had a big
The leader of these girls was a girl named Amber Birch. She had a nickname called Bubbles, and her and Pazuzu were said to be thick as thieves.
This geezer had women on tap. They was drawn to him like flies on He kind of just liked his fragrance. I guess old Pazuzu was a firm believer in the old under toilet.
They both shared an obsession with the cult leader Charles Manson, with both desiring to emulate his family values. Pazuzu's house on Nob Hill Drive had become a welcoming open house for anybody who felt misunderstood or excluded from society.
People like to talk about Pazuzu's massive rant nailed to the front door. But no one talks about the doormat on the inside. It said wipe your feet on the way out.
He had a certain type of twisted charisma that attracted misfits and outcasts. Dubbed the House of Horrors, anybody who wanted to come and stay was welcome to. They were allowed to stay for as long as they wanted, and whatever they wanted to do within the house, that was okay. In fact, Pazuzu was often leading or encouraging the debauchery. Excessive drug consumption and orgies was a daily part of life within the household, as was self-harm, drinking of blood, and animal abuse, including the sacrifice of rabbits and drinking the blood of birds. Pazuzu's personal hygiene was beyond poor, with reports that were leaked from his psychologist saying he took only one bath a year, insisting that the buildup of dirt and grime protected him and kept him healthy.
They say Pazuzu had one bath a year. I wonder if he had bubbles in it.
He covered his body in satanic tattoos. And during a meth-filled binge, he decided to grind his teeth into points with a Dremel tool.
When I brush my teeth, I like to use a bit of the old Sensodyne. My old mate Pazuzu, he uses a bloody Dremel.
Not only was the house in a sorry state of repair, but everybody who came near it was aware of a particular stench.
You have bad smells, and then you have Pazuzu.
Due to the animal and human feces littering the urine-soaked carpets.
Pazuzu's house was like a rubbish dump, and it goes as follows. The rat eats the cockroach. The cat eats the rat. The dog eats the cat. And the occasional turd. But what the hell does Pazuzu eat?
Pazuzu would often entertain his friends with grand tales that he had killed prostitutes and that their bodies was kept in his basement.
We've all had mates who sit there waffling on, saying, I did this, I did that, oh, I'm so fast, I'm so strong. And we just sit there nodding with a blank expression on our face like, yeah, mate, yeah. But if you're sat there with a geezer who stinks of saying he got dead bodies in the basement, I suggest you take him seriously. Disclaimer, this isn't a blueprint for future serial killers. We all know dead bodies stink. People normally get caught by the rotten stench. Well, old Pazuzu here just worked out. If you just shit all over your own eyes, all people smell is stinky poo-poo.
He would brag that he had ate human flesh, but his audience was vulnerable people who were high on drugs, so I'm not sure anybody took him seriously. Now let's just sidestep in this story and bring in Josh and Stacy Wetzler, a young wholesome couple with a huge compassion for animals. They had a business rehabilitating horses, which just speaks volumes about the people that they were. Unfortunately, in 2008, during the recession, hard times hit their business. And when a much needed loan from the bank got rejected, this resulted in them losing everything. With the stresses and strains this must involve, and a young child to think of, their relationship was put under pressure. They decided to take a break, and Stacy, with their child, took a job at a farm and moved away. Josh and Stacy still cared for each other and remained on good terms. I think they both thought they could work through life's difficulties and one day end up back together. Josh, at this point, was unable to find work or earn honest money, so he turned to dealing drugs. This was obviously a bad move for Josh, and a few months later his trailer was raided and he was convicted on drug charges. This pretty much ruined any chance he had of finding one of the scarce jobs in the area at the time, and Josh therefore fell into a vicious cycle of depression and making bad decisions. In 2009, the police found Josh's abandoned car with the keys in the ignition, the door wide open, the windows rolled down. But seeing on their records that it was registered to a known drug dealer, the police decided not to pursue it any further. Similarly, at the same time, Stacy hadn't heard anything from her ex. But assuming he was laying low from the police, she did nothing. Back in Clements, North Carolina, Two brothers named Tommy and Rusty Welsh planned on meeting up. Rusty had a job working for Domino's Pizzas, so he told his brother, "I know, I'll bring pizza after work." But when Rusty had finished work, got the pizza and gone home that day, there was no sign of Tommy. This was unusual. The brothers were very close and always in contact with each other, and if Tommy was running late, he would usually text ahead. Rusty tried calling his brother and got no answer. He tried all throughout the night and still no answer. Tommy Welsh had disappeared. Back to Pazuzu and his house of horrors. The house was still a mess. The parties were still going on. The orgies were still happening. Drugs and alcohol were being consumed freely, and Pazuzu was still claiming to have killed people to anybody that would listen. New people arriving to the house would exclaim how the house smelt like death. Pazuzu would just laugh and say, "Yeah, that's the dead bodies in my basement." He was claiming at this time that he had shot somebody 6 times in the head, and that the body was being concealed with bleach and cat litter. His friends were used to hearing Pazuzu's tall stories, but one friend, Trina Billings, tied these specific claims to the fact that one day Pazuzu's family members were acting suspiciously with a shovel and decided to go to the police.
Whatever happened to good old-fashioned police work? To say the old Bill was incompetent and lazy is a bloody understatement. Knock, knock. Hello, do you have a couple of dead bodies in here? Nah, sorry, mate. Don't know what you're on about. Are you sure? I told you, mate. I ain't got no dead bodies in here. Anyway, I'm off to take a shit on the carpet. Okay, have a good day. Piss off.
And the police said, okay. They felt reassured, left, and there were no further investigations to do. In September, a month later, the police received an anonymous tip saying pretty much the same thing, but staggeringly, they did nothing. Being frustrated with the situation, Trina thought, I've got to get more evidence that the police can't ignore. So she went back to Pazuzu's house for a party, and she took with her a recording device. She knew from experience it wouldn't take much to get Pazuzu and the gang talking about what they'd done. She got Pazuzu and his friends admitting to what they'd done, took it to the police, and still no action was taken.
Pazuzu's old dear goes down the stairs and sees her son rolling up a dead body in a carpet like it's a cheap cigarette. This woman just walks off, goes back upstairs, does her makeup, goes to work. If that's normal to her, what crazy shit this woman's seen in her life.
In May 2010, Pazuzu popped up on the police radar once again, but this time it was for choking his mum. But in the end, she decided not to pursue the charges against her son, so Pazuzu walked free once again. In February 2010, Josh Wetzler's wife, Stacy, came forward to the police finally. She had heard rumours that Josh had been killed at the hands of Pazuzu, but when Josh didn't get in touch with his mum on her birthday, which was something he would do every year regardless of the situation, she finally started to think maybe these rumours were true and she needed to do something about them. With Stacy reaching out to the police, this finally prompted them to execute a search warrant on Pazuzu's house. They even took cadaver dogs, but they found nothing and had to come away.
Pazuzu's had stuck so bad, even the cadaver dogs couldn't find nothing. Jesus Christ. How bad did it smell?
Sadly, on June the 7th, 2010, a blind man named Joseph Chandler was found shot in the back of the head, lying dead next to a river.
Pazuzu was a real piece of shit, going out there picking on innocent blind guys. I guess he didn't see it coming.
His mother believes he was targeted by Pazuzu and his friend Nicholas Rizzi because it was a full moon, and on this night they believed they needed to kill. So they went out searching and they found her son. Rizzy pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter and got a shocking 13 months in prison. Whilst ever the slippery character Pazuzu evades a custodial sentence and is given 5 years of probation.
Pazuzu's attitude really stinks, and so does he.
You have to wonder, what life lessons is he being taught here? So Pazuzu returns to his house of horrors. His numerous fiancées, the drugs, the orgies, the stinking house, and all of his old antics.
Listen in, folks. I heard Pazuzu's attitude really stank.
Fast forward a bit to 2014. One evening during one of his many parties, he approaches one of his oldest friends and he asks him if he will help him murder someone else who is in the house. I mean, I guess he needed a new wingman because the last one got locked up for 13 months for killing somebody. This friend, Matt Flowers, hesitantly refused, and instead he went to the guy and gave him the heads up, telling him, look, you need to get out of here now. Matt then went to the police with what had happened and his concerns and his worries. Thankfully, the police actually listened to him. They issued another search warrant. And on October the 5th, 2014, the House of Horrors on Nob Hill Drive was raided for the final time. This time, the police noticed some uneven ground in the garden and specifically searched this area. They got some dig teams in and started digging down. It wasn't long before they discovered not one, but 2 male bodies buried in shallow graves. Unfortunately, these were the bodies of Josh Wetzler and Tommy Welsh, both who had been missing for more than 5 years. It is unknown why Pazuzu decided to kill Josh, but it was discovered through the testament of friends and photo that Pazuzu wore Josh's blood-stained bandana as a trophy for days after Josh had passed away. Tommy, on the other hand, had been scouted by Amber, one of Pazuzu's fiancées. She picked him up at a gas station under the facade that the pair were going to return to Pazuzu's house for a couple of beers. As Tommy sat on the sofa, Amber shot him in the back of the head. Both Pazuzu and Amber were arrested and each were charged with 1 count of murder and accessory after the fact. But at the risk of being held responsible and facing his crimes, Pazuzu Algarad, whilst on remand in his cell, he decided to end his life. He used his filed down teeth to bite through an artery in his armpit and bled to death.
It's easy. It's just a day in jail. Well, and then another one. And another one. Well, maybe a few more after that. So I guess old Pazuzu didn't like the prison food. That's why he started eating his own arm.
It was found out that his mother had witnessed and had known of both murders, potentially more, but no charges were ever filed against her.
Pazuzu's old dear was a few sandwiches sort of a picnic. This woman witnessed bear murder. She lived in a shit pit, dog turds, human turds, Pazuzu shitting all over the gap. No one thought to check her mental health. I guess you could say this woman ain't firing on all cylinders.
Amber was charged with second-degree murder and robbery. She was sentenced to 39 years in prison. This has been a horrific case. Chaos, what do you make of all of this? Because to me, it's somebody who's getting away with a lot of things throughout his life. Pazuzu never takes responsibility.
You can't go on like a bad man and then choose the old get out jail free card. This ain't Monopoly. Don't get £200 for passing go. You do the crime, you do the time. If you're the true demonic bad man you think you are. Listen, folks, you can have this one for free. What's brown and sticky? The feces left on Pazuzu's floor.
in which he would ritualistically ritualistic. In a ritualistic sacrifice,